My name is Bill. I am 38 years old and I work as a manager in a large financial services company. My life seems to be going well. I have a wife, children, and a house in a cozy suburb. Kate and I have been together for 10 years. We have two wonderful children, a daughter who is 6 years old and a son who is 4. My wife does not work, she takes care of the children and the house, and I provide for the family. Our home has always been filled with children's laughter and comfort. On weekends, we would go to the park, have a barbecue in the yard, or just watch movies together. We were always planning something for the future: trips, house renovations, maybe another child. It seemed like it would always be like that. I never doubted our marriage. Kate was not just my wife, she was my friend, my support. We went through many trials together, and I was sure that our life was stable. Kate had friends. Sometimes she would go for coffee with them or go to the gym, but she always came home to our family. I was proud that we were doing so well. Maybe I was even a little naive to believe that everything would always be so perfect. But recently, something started to change. I didn't notice it right away, but Kate became more distant. She was leaving the house more and more often to meet friends or go to workouts. I thought she just wanted a little more time for herself, because being a mom is hard. So I supported her in this, although sometimes I missed our time together. As time went on, Kate became more and more distant. I noticed that she was leaving the house more and more often under various pretexts, either with friends for coffee or to go to the gym. Sometimes she would come back later than usual, making excuses about traffic jams or long conversations. I did not attach much importance to this. We all have our own things to do, and I thought it was normal, but the feeling of anxiety was still growing. Kate started talking more about her health and fitness. She mentioned a new trainer, Brad. It sounded innocent at first, but as time went on, her conversations about him became more frequent. She talked about how he was helping her achieve new results, how she felt better after her workouts, and how they sometimes talked after class. Inside, I started to worry about something, but I didn't want to be paranoid or look like a jealous husband. One evening, while we were sitting at home, Kate received a phone call. She quickly picked up the phone and left the room to talk. I didn't hear what exactly it was about, but the conversation was short, and when she came back, she looked a bit worried. I asked who it was, but she just brushed it off. "It's just someone from the gym. I have to go there later according to the schedule." That was the first time I thought something might be wrong. This was not like Kate. She had always been straightforward with me. Now she started avoiding direct answers and seemed nervous. I decided not to jump to conclusions. Maybe I was just exaggerating. But every day, these little things that I hadn't paid attention to before began to add up to something bigger. Something elusive that made me doubt that everything in our marriage was as stable as I had thought. Suspicions grew inside me every day. More and more often, Kate said she was going to work out, but she would come back late. I began to notice her checking her phone more often, hiding it from me. It was strange because we had never had problems trusting each other before. One evening, while Kate was in the shower, I noticed her phone left on the living room table. I felt everything inside me clench. I wasn't in the habit of checking her personal belongings, but now I just couldn't resist. Something was telling me to take a look. I picked up my phone and opened her messages. At first, there was nothing unusual, standard correspondence with friends. But then I saw his name, Brad, the coach. As I opened their messages, I felt a wave of anger wash over me. Her last message to him was, "Meet me tomorrow at 11. As always, the gym will be a cover." My heart stopped. They had agreed to meet outside of practice, and Kate was lying to me about it. I quickly closed my phone and put it back. I couldn't sleep that night. All our plans, all the years we had spent together, all of it seemed in vain. I felt betrayed, but I decided to proceed cautiously. I had to make sure until the end. If she said she was going to practice again tomorrow, I would check her out. The next morning, as expected, Kate announced that she was going to the gym. I just nodded, restraining myself. After she left, I quickly got in the car and started following her from a distance. Of course, she didn't go to the gym. Her route led to the edge of the park, where I saw another car. Brad was waiting for it. I stopped at a distance, watching them get out of the car together, laughing, and spread a blanket on the grass. They started a picnic. I sat in the car, not believing my eyes. And when they started kissing, I couldn't hold back any longer. My blood was boiling, and anger overwhelmed me. I got out of the car and confidently walked up to them. Kate saw me first. Her face instantly changed from a carefree smile to fear and shock. Brad, who had just been gently holding her hand, stopped and looked back in my direction. He looked equally surprised, but quickly pulled his hand away from Kate's and stood up. "What the hell is going on?" I exploded, stopping a few meters away. Anger was boiling inside me, and I could barely stop myself from hitting Brad. "Bill, I can explain everything." Kate quickly got to her feet, her voice trembling with panic. She took a few steps toward me, but I held up my hand to stop her. "Explain what? How you lied to me about the gym to go out with him." I pointed at Brad, who was silent, not knowing what to say. "How long has this been going on, Kate? How many times have you lied to me?" "Bill, it's not what you think." She tried to explain, but her voice sounded helpless. "It was just one time. I didn't mean for it to go that far." "You didn't?" His anger grew. "You've been seeing him, lying to me for weeks, and that's not what I think. Do you think I'm blind? I found your messages. You planned these picnics you hid behind the gym. How could you?" Brad decided to speak up. "Look, Bill, we didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened. It just happened." I laughed nervously, feeling his every word making me lose control. "You think it's that easy? You come into my life, you destroy my marriage, and it just happened?" Kate began to cry. "Bill, I know I betrayed you, but please listen to me. I felt lost. We haven't really talked for a long time. You're always at work, and I started to feel lonely. It was a mistake, but we can fix it." I could feel my heart clenching with pain. "Fix it?" I replied coldly. "You think it can be fixed? We built a whole life together, and you ruined it all because of him. How can you say that?" I couldn't look at her anymore. Everything that was between us disappeared in an instant. My trust, my love, everything became useless. I turned around and walked to my car, not listening to her tears or apologies anymore. The only thing I knew for sure was that our marriage ended here, at this picnic. I got into the car, but I couldn't drive right away. My heart was beating so hard I could barely breathe. My eyes were on the road, but my thoughts were far away. What do I do now? Where do I go? What do I do? I always thought my life with Kate was stable. She was my wife, the mother of our children, the person I trusted more than myself. And now it's all been destroyed. I couldn't understand how things had gone so far. Was it my fault? Had I been too busy working, too focused on making our lives work, that I didn't see Kate pulling away? I couldn't get her words about loneliness and lack of attention out of my head. But did that justify what she had done? I looked down at my hands gripping the steering wheel. Anger and despair tore at me from the inside. Kate had betrayed me with a man I didn't even know existed until she started talking about Coach all the time. I didn't see that sign. But now it was clear. Children. How do you tell children? How do I explain to them that their mom will no longer be a part of our family the way she used to be? I realized that they were still young and might not understand everything, but they would definitely notice that something had changed. The thought filled me with fear. After a few minutes in a state of shock, I realized that I was sitting in the car, just staring into the void. Gathering my will into a fist, I decided to act. I knew that our marriage could no longer be saved. Everything was ruined, and now I had to think about how to get out of this situation with as little loss as possible for the children and for myself. I decided to file for divorce. It was the only solution. I didn't want any more quarrels, excuses, or lies. I only wanted peace and clarity. For me and for our children. On the way back home, I started to make a plan. First, I needed to talk to Kate. We had to decide how to divorce in a civilized way, without scandals and unnecessary emotions. Then I had to find a lawyer and start the divorce process. I realized that it would not be easy, but there was no other way out. I returned home late at night, and the house seemed incredibly quiet. The kids were already asleep. Kate was sitting in the kitchen holding a cup of tea. Her eyes were red, and I realized that she hadn't had a good day either. But that didn't stop me. All those emotions that had been raging inside me now became cold and logical. I knew it was time for a serious conversation. I sat down at the table opposite her, and she looked at me. Her eyes silently begged for forgiveness, but I could no longer give it. I gathered my thoughts and began. "We need to talk about the divorce." Kate was silent at first, looking at me as if she couldn't believe her ears. She knew it was over, but she didn't want to accept it. She took a few tentative sips of tea and finally answered. "Bill, I don't want a divorce. I know I've made a mistake, but we can fix it somehow, right?" I looked at her, trying to stay calm. "Kate, you betrayed me. You didn't just make a mistake, you destroyed our family. I can't forget that, and I can't live a lie anymore. This is not something that can be fixed." She began to cry. "I did it because I was lonely. I felt abandoned. You're always at work, and I didn't know how to go on living. And that's why you went to Brad?" I asked sharply, trying not to give in to my emotions. "You could have talked to me. You could have tried to solve this in a different way. But you chose to lie." She broke down in tears, trying to find words, but I had already made up my mind. "I don't want any more scandals or excuses. The children need peace, and I will do everything I can to make sure they don't suffer from our breakup. We must part in a civilized way." Kate sat silently, her head bowed. She realized that I would never change my mind. It was over. "I will find a lawyer and start the process. We'll divide the property, agree on custody of the children." "I don't want a war, Kate. We need to do this in a way that the children are not hurt as much as possible." She nodded, wiping away her tears. Her voice was quiet, almost inaudible. "Okay, I agree." The following weeks were like a dream, but not a pleasant one. Kate and I hardly spoke. She was in her own world, trying not to cry in front of the children and maintain the appearance of a normal life. I was constantly busy lawyers, paperwork, division of property. I wanted to complete this process as soon as possible to put it all behind me. The lawyers worked quickly. We agreed on joint custody of the children. I knew that Kate loved them and would never hurt them, so I decided not to complicate the situation. As for the property, we divided the house and savings equally, without any arguments. I didn't need more than I had, I just wanted peace of mind. The children took it all better than I expected. They sensed that something was wrong between us, but we tried not to have fights in front of them. I decided not to involve them in our problems. They had to remain children, even if their parents were no longer together. When the divorce process was over, I stayed in the house. It was the house where Kate and I lived together, where our children grew up. But now it seemed empty. After Kate moved out, there was a silence in the house that was hard to bear. I tried not to be alone for too long, spending time with the children. Over time, I started to get used to my new life. I can't say it was easy, but step by step, I felt like I was recovering. It was painful to lose everything I considered stable, but I realized that life goes on. Now I was focused on my children and building a new future for them. A future in which I would remain their father, regardless of what happened between me and Kate. A few months have passed since our divorce. Life slowly began to take on a new direction. I focused on my children and my work. Kate and I maintained formal contact through the children, but every conversation with her reminded me of what we once had and what was now lost forever. At times, I felt pain, but not as sharp as before. The anger gradually faded away, leaving only emptiness. Every day I became stronger. I learned to appreciate the moments that remained unchanged, time with my children, the work I loved, and the small joys of life. They helped me survive this ordeal and keep moving forward. Now I look at everything from a different perspective. What happened to Kate changed me. I no longer believe that there are any guarantees in life, even in relationships that seem strong. I realize that love and trust are fragile things that can be lost in an instant if you don't take care of them. But I also realize that I can handle it. I learned not to hold on to the past, but to accept what is now. My marriage to Kate is over, but that doesn't mean my life is too. It continues, and I have new goals: to become a better father to my children, to build a new future for myself. I don't know what lies ahead, but now I'm ready for anything. My children have become my support. They help me through these difficult times, and I will do my best to make them feel loved and protected. I may never have the family that Kate and I had planned, but I have them, and that's what matters most to me. One day I was standing in the yard of our house, watching the sunset. Everything seemed so peaceful. I felt like I could finally let go of all this pain and move on. The past has left its scars, but it no longer determines my future.